see in her face, the mirror of your dream. Make believe I'm everywhere, I'm hidden in the lines. Written on the pages is the answer to a never-ending story.
The Never-Ending Story is a fantasy classic for young adults by Michael Ende, published in 1979. For Wolfgang Petersen's 1984 adaptation, the sequels and remakes unrelated to the novel, and Momo from 2 years later based on the 1973 bestseller by Michael Ende, see the same-named retrospectives. The Never-Ending Story 2, the next chapter from 1990, has in Germany the nonsensical subtitle In Search of Fantasia. Even though Bastian has already found Fantasia, and if he's looking for anything at all, it's ultimately the way out. Just like Dorothy for the way out of the magical land in The Wizard of Oz. In the German US sequel, Bastian visits Coriander again to borrow a self-help book on courage, because of his supposed fear of heights, which wasn't an issue during his dragon flight in the last movie, or the flight during this movie a few hours later, when he hears the childlike Empress calling for help and notices the writing in the Never-Ending Story is slowly disappearing. Coriander tries to keep it from him again, so he steals it again, and the bookseller once again has no problem with it. It gives him the Aurine, and thanks to the Star Trek upgrade is now apparently also a communicator and teleportation device, and he lands with Aurine around his neck back in Fantasia. There he meets the Birdman Nimbly, receives a fragmented message from the imprisoned childlike Empress, just like Luke from Princess Leia in Star Wars.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
He even says,
Bastian, you are my last hope.
Reunites with his friend Atreyu, and they encounter the so-called giants, who are destroying Fantasia. Bastian discovers what's spreading there. The emptiness. Presumably the one from the head of the simpleton who came up with this so-called screenplay. In this case, Hollow Head Karen Howard. Under the control of the dark witch Xaid, who wants to seize power over Fantasia by developing a hidden device that causes Bastian to lose memory with every wish granted by Aurine. Her spy Nimbly is supposed to trick him into making wishes until he forgets his rescue mission.
Turn around, look at what you see.
She allows herself to be captured and manages on their way to the ivory tower to sow discord between them.
In her face, the mirror of your dream.
Meanwhile, Bastian's father reads about his son and also becomes a part of the never-ending screenplay story. Atreyu sees through Xaid's plan, and while trying to warn Bastian, who doesn't believe him and fights him instead, falls off a cliff, just like the story. The soundtrack is by Robert Falk, but also includes horrible singing and other pieces by Giorgio Moroder, such as his theme from the first movie.
A never-ending story.
In the novel, the annoying Nimbly character doesn't exist, nor does the unimaginative Void, and Bastian's father isn't reading the Never-Ending Story. Bastian himself tells him the story after his return. There he stays in Fantasia, after his arrival to recreate it on behalf of the childlike Empress, with Aurine and his wishes, which unconsciously cost him a memory each time, something the childlike Empress keeps from him. In the movie exact opposite, she seemingly tries to warn him, unsuccessfully, since she has a poor signal, probably hasn't paid her phone bill or something. There is no giant threat, but the witch can also manipulate hollow things, like her metal guardians, with the power of her will. And now Dr. Snuggles' Who Wishes What machine by Gyro Gear loses Saide, which only reinforces his already existing desire for power and strength. He doesn't want to go back even before he meets her, and reveals in the position of the great and powerful savior of Fantasia, and increasingly creates dangerous situations and ever more malevolent creatures. Saide in her hand-shaped castle is one of them, which put others in ever greater danger, only to then play the hero. There too, the scheming witch with the invisibility belt Gemal tricks him into abandoning his friends Atreyu and Fuchur, in the English version Falkor, but also into crowning himself ruler of Fantasia. An epic civil war erupts over the throne, during which the ivory tower burns down, and Atreyu is severely wounded by him. Finally, in the city of old emperors, inhabited by madmen, some of whom also try to rule Fantasia, he discovers the truth about his wishes' memories. He then, since only a few left, uses them carefully to recognize his true will, as only this can lead him back home.
Reach the stars, fly a fantasy, dream a dream, and what you see will be.
The way the movie tells the story, she makes absolutely no sense. Bastian could simply wish away any kind of threat, from the void, the giants, the rampant inflation, and that would be it. It only works the other way around, namely that he, with his increasingly selfish wishes, becomes the actual threat, even to himself. But here he is also mentally challenged, so on par with his screenwriter's level, and wishes, for example, even though he clearly sees how far it's to the top, for one more step, and then one more, and then one more, and so on. How could such a scene get a pass? Were there only idiots involved? In the novel, he's also not a naive innocent lamb who unsuspectingly falls victim to a conspiracy, has typical human weaknesses, and is ultimately by infinite power corrupted infinitely. The so-called adaptation was, as usual, the work of talentless hacks who didn't even begin to understand the intelligent source material, which is accessible to any child. And so they simply turned Bastian into a fearful, you could say, little girl who ultimately overcomes his fear thanks to the script. Jan. And for that they just randomly cherry-pick things from the novel for their run-of-the-mill screenplay, following their Hollywood formula. Like the acid sea, but then did absolutely nothing with it. In the source material, this serves as a protection against invaders. There Bastian humiliates the winner of a tournament in an unfair competition, swimming through it unharmed since protected by Aurine. Bastian's first wish in the movie is for an ultra-dangerous dragon, as a means of transport? In the novel he also creates one, but with a much later wish, for his knights, so they can prove themselves against him. In the movie, up till then, I have no idea why, he didn't use a wish even when his life depended on it, which he then, for reasons, goes after with Fuchur, even with his fear of heights. And who is then, thanks to script intervention, simply killed by Star Wars laser cannons, as deadly or harmless as needed, into which he conveniently commits suicide. So the typical myth and fairy tale stuff, I guess.
Rhymes that keep their secrets will unfold behind the clouds. There upon the rainbow is the answer to our never-ending story.
The never-ending inconsistency Escape from Fantasia by George Miller, not to be confused with George Mad Max Miller, more on the two Australian namesakes, in the Witches of Eastwick retrospective, received mostly mixed to quite rightly negative feedback. Here they try to mask the incredibly lazy writing with elaborate sets and effects, which already looked ultra fake when it came out. It also didn't help that all the human characters, Bastian, Atreyu, Moonchild, have zero charisma, a significantly weaker cast than its predecessor, who probably got their costumes straight from the bargain bin. Bastian's fabricated cowardice and sheer stupidity make him downright unlikable. He often acts like a girl. For example, when fighting monsters, he doesn't want a grenade launcher 5000 like any normal boy, but a gay spray can. In the novel he mows them down with an awesome magic sword. All the familiar mythical creatures, Fuchur, Rockbiter, etc. simply repeat their appearances from the predecessor and worse. And the unimaginative new ones, like Birdman, Mudman, Lava Man, Junior, a four-faced creature called Three-Face, so they can't even count correctly, seem to have jumped out of a TV comedy sketch. George Snorhead Miller's direction can't hold a candle to that of a true visionary like Wolfgang Petersen. It lacks the dense atmosphere and the fast pace of its predecessor, and despite being 10 minutes shorter, actually feels longer. And everything just looks cheap like hell. And that despite a significantly higher budget, estimated $35 million, roughly a third more than the first one, of which it barely made half in the US back. The worldwide box office isn't available, making it most likely also a commercial flop. In the movie final, Bastian discovers the memory machine. He only has 2 left. Resurrects Atreo, who isn't actually dead, and uses the last one to wish for a heart for Xaide. Oh, how sweet. Which, just like a German who grows a heart, destroys her along with her giants, saves Fantasia, and restores his memories. To get home, he then, for whatever reason, encouraged by his dad, jumps off a high cliff. So exactly what the viewer, who thought this thing had any resemblance with the novel, has been wanting to do since the opening pop song.
Show no fear, for she may